Hi everyone, this is Renee from Meadowlark Mystic, and I'm doing a late August wrap-up and share, and then I think that's it. I may be telling what's happening in September, but I haven't really thought that far ahead. So what I wanted to do was to go ahead and share with you some of the decks that I really enjoyed this month. And then also share a little bit of a deck that I modified. So the first deck that I've really been enjoying this month is this one, Tarot del Fuego. I'm gonna have to. So this deck is from Fournier. So the cards are smaller than an average. Of course, I don't have an average one that I can grab. Let's see. Oh, yes, I do. Just a second. So, just in case you don't know, yeah, so quite a bit smaller, but I absolutely don't mind at all. I like smaller decks. I just thought maybe I would share that with you. So this deck has been on my list or had been on my list for a really long time. But I hesitated because it's quite busy. Ooh, that's really going to be annoying. Let's see. Every time I go through this, then I don't know if you can really see. Okay. It's really quite busy, and I was afraid that I would have trouble reading with it. So this is a good example of a deck that when you just see images online that are not part of a reading, you can kind of get led astray, or in my case I was led astray, that it would be difficult to read with this deck. I do find when I just look at the images cold, so not in a reading, you know, some of them are easier than others. So, you know, this particular card is really easy. But I loved it. I loved it so much more than I thought I would. I was happily surprised. I've always been really attracted to this artwork. And the kind of fiery emotionality of this deck. It's so kind of in your face, but then so loving at the same time. It's a really strange combination of feelings. So I wanted it, but then I was afraid I wouldn't be able to read with it. And that proved to not be the case. You know, it was really interesting. I looked at this deck with my son, who's 12, and I tried to convince him that the sword suit, which was, you know, is this one obviously, is better or like easier to take in this deck than the pentacles. So in this deck, the pentacles are pretty, I don't know, they're kind of, they're like in your face more. Oops, these two are backwards. But he wouldn't have, he didn't believe me. He said, no, the swords are definitely, like this is a pentacle card, the Nine of Pentacles. Anyway, I was really surprised, by this deck in that it was not the challenge to read with that I thought it would be. So that's the Tarot del Fuego. And then the other deck that I wanted to mention again is the Sasuraibito Tarot. I got this in a giveaway from the lovely Joanne. Sacred Space Japan is her channel. You should definitely check her out if you don't already. This deck is so kind. And you know, it's different than a hug deck. You know, so my hug deck is definitely my Animal Wisdom Tarot, and I've shared that before. This is not a hug deck. I don't feel hugged when I use this deck. I feel, though, that the deck treads very gently at times when I need it to. I was super, I've mentioned, I was super surprised at how warm and handmade this deck feels when you get it into your hands. So if you've been kind of holding off on getting this deck, but you know, I was attracted to it, of course, because it has a really beautiful and interesting kind of contemporary art style. But something held me back. I just thought, no, I don't really need that. But this deck has a real personality, really strong personality in that it's very kind and it treads softly and gently, like I said. So I really appreciate, and I'm finding I love this deck way more than I thought possible. It's also very beautiful. So Tracy from Miss Tracy 2, she saw a post that I made on Instagram with this deck, the Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot. I had transformed this deck into an oracle. So what I did was, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll just go through it with you. I cut all the titles off. So it's a small deck. I'm trying to see if you can see. The writing is down here. I'm sorry, my camera is not able to. It's down here in gold lettering, and you can't really see very well. So what I did was, as I looked through the cards, I would write down keywords that came to my mind, and then I went through and decided what card would be what. However, I doubled up on some of them. And at first I was pretty, I was like, oh my gosh, I ruined it. But actually, for me, since all of the keywords are super personal, I feel like if I doubled up on them, I obviously needed to see them again. So I'll just go through some. I think that it's a really great way to create an oracle deck that is very specific to you and your journey and the words that you need to hear. You know, I know myself fairly well, and I know the areas that I'm consistently blind to, or the areas that I consistently forget or need help with. And so that's what a lot of these keywords are about. So this one is becoming. This one is inner light. Make sure. Of two minds. Oops. Who wins? Fear. Find the way out. Temperance. So some of the cards are from the deck. This just was such a great temperance card that I wanted to keep it. Are you free? Mismatched. Reap. Force. I have two forces in this deck. So in this card is really force, like literally forcing someone to do something. And then the other card in the deck is more like the strength card. Denial. No choice. New eyes. High Priestess is from the tarot. Getting off. Queen Bee. Drive. Everything you need. Flood. The Moon, and that's from the tarot deck. Going nowhere. Taking care. What is this one? Where are you going? Sacrifice. Find peace. Killing love. I have two killing loves. Self-love. And I think I have two self-loves too, so that can tell you a lot about me. Rest. Get it out. She's writing. Holding back. This is another killing love. Imagine. Demands. Hurting self. And this is the other force. So this is more like the strength, traditional like strength card. Stagnant. Death. What will you pay? So that's just some of this oracle that I changed the Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot into an oracle. It's a very personal deck for me because of the words that I chose. Like this card was death in this deck. So some of them, like I said, kept their titles, but most of them were changed. And some of them double up because I need help in those areas quite a bit. The other thing I wanted to share is, as you know, I was doing an oracle deck with repurposed art. And I finished that deck. It has about 45 cards in it. And then I started doing collage. So I just wanted to share some collage. This one is not a collage. This is just a piece of art. But I thought it would be fun to just go through some of the cards, especially if you don't, if you're not on Instagram. So again, these are just collage. Really like this one. It looks like she's peeking. I find collage really meditative. And I love looking at the art upside down and sideways and all different ways. And so I found it super creative and also meditative. And so these are just some of the, and if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen some of these because I did post some. I like this one a lot. I had a lot of fun with this. I'm still doing it at my desk. It's kind of like just something I do now. I even bought a 2016 art calendar because I wanted to use the art. This card was really interesting. So it's a Degas painting, and I mean, not all of it, obviously it's been collaged, but I found it fascinating how messed up her face is. Like, he put these splotches on her eyes and her mouth and her teeth. You know, when you first look at a Degas painting of the ballerinas, you think, oh, you know, so beautiful. But if you look closer, there's some strange animosity that goes on in his artwork, specifically towards women. And so I kind of honed in on that with this card. So yes, this is just the collage that I have been doing. This one's called The Male Gaze. And then the last thing I wanted to share is I just today received the Moon Oracle. So it's funny about this deck. I wanted this deck, but then I knew it was out of print. And then it would be difficult to get. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe I don't want it. So instead, I got this deck, which I've shown before on my channel, and it's the deck by Mystic Mag. I think it's called Mystic Mag. And it is Caroline Smith and John Astrolorp's art, but it's a pip deck. And it's beautiful. The majors are really cool. But I really wanted the Moon Oracle. Let me get the book, which is, here's the book. So this is the one I just got in the mail today. So what I found when it was available is all of a sudden I didn't want it, which I thought was so odd. I really don't know why I do that sometimes. It's almost like I want it because I can't have it, and then when it's available, then I don't want it anymore. So I thought, well, you know, it's kind of its own system, and, you know, maybe I'm just not ready for that. But then I started working with this deck for the moon cycles, for the new moon and the full moon, and mostly the new moon and the full moon. And I found I really loved working with this deck with the moon. And one of the reasons was because for me, it's a very non-emotional deck. Oh my gosh, I just dropped a bunch of cards. It's a very non-emotional deck. I'll have to pick them up in a second. And when I'm looking at what the next 2-week cycle is going to be like, I really don't want it supercharged with a lot of, I don't know, emotion. And so that's actually what I really like about pip decks. They are not so emotionally charged for me. I can just deal with the element and the number and work from there. Like, even, you know, this is the Devil card. When it's next to 2 other like pip cards, I don't know, it makes it really accessible to me in a beautiful way. And that's when I started looking at this deck a lot closer, because I felt like the two of them would speak in a language that I could really understand and utilize for the 2-week cycles that I use them for. And so once I realized I really liked working with the Mystic Mag, then I was like, okay, I see how I would be able to work better with the Moon Oracle. So yeah, these two decks look really good together because, you know, it's the same artist, and or the same team, I guess. And then, you know, they have goddess archetypes, which I also really enjoy. And this is when you get kind of too full on. I actually think they go really well together. So yeah, I just wanted to share those decks and the decks I've been enjoying, and this is a new deck to me, the Moon Oracle. The backs are kind of hard to see in this low light. I think this is, Artemis, I'm pretty sure. You know, I still have a lot to learn with this system, but I do really find the artwork very evocative, but not in a, I don't want to say triggering, because that's also kind of an emotionally charged psychological word. I find it conveys a lot of information without making me feel kind of worried or paranoid, if that makes sense. So that's the Moon Oracle, and that is what I've been working with for August and enjoying. I mean, I've been working with a lot of decks. I always use a lot of decks for my pulls. And the fires in my region are starting to become contained. So the big fire north of me is 95% contained, and the even larger fire south of me, I think, is now 50% contained. So we still have a lot of smoke every day and ash falling from the sky. And then personally, you know, my family is still trying to figure out what we're going to do. So one of the things that's making this such a difficult transition for me personally, besides the thing I mentioned in my past videos, was we're probably going to be moving from our little farm here, and that in and of itself is huge. So just processing that and dealing with what that means, and we don't know where we're going, so it's just a lot of things up in the air. But I just wanted to share that with you. I think it's kind of interesting that I landed on this as the last card, and hope that you're doing well wherever in the world you are, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.